Welcome to K6 Wellness Revolution, where we believe health is worth fighting for. This podcast focuses on all things related to natural health, wellness, and vibrant living. We know your time is valuable, and I'm honored that you're spending some of it here. So get ready, because the Wellness Revolution starts right now. Hi, welcome back to the K6 Wellness Revolution podcast. I'm Sharon, traditional naturopath and family nurse practitioner, also owner of K6 Wellness Center.
And I'm Elena, holistic health coach and whole body thermography specialist, also at K6 Wellness Center in Dallas, Texas, where we blend trusted expertise, compassionate care, and a passion for helping you achieve optimal health. Because wellness isn't just a goal, it's a revolution.
Today, we're going to discuss the topic of everything thyroid. Now, of all the varied health problems we see, I think that thyroid is probably the most common complaint or organ-related complaint. So people want to know about how thyroid affects their weight, their hair, their skin, their hormone balance, fertility, vim and vigor, mental health, and so much more. And, thyroid disease, actually autoimmune thyroid disease, is the most commonly diagnosed autoimmune disease in America. And there's a reason for that. It used to not be that way. So it's quite remarkable. And considering that about 80% of people who actually have thyroid dysfunction don't ever get diagnosed, that's kind of scary. I think there's a lot of people running around out there that don't feel good. So we're going to go over I think the most common, it's almost an FAQ. Elena and I are going to both give our insight and try to help you, the listener or watcher, viewer, determine, is this something that you might want to dig in a little bit more on for your own health? So, Elena, thyroid. I feel like just today, everything we did was thyroid related.
There was so much of it because it is one of the most common things that comes in our door. And, I was thinking as we were preparing for this podcast, I remember seeing blood work, like, let's say a decade ago, because we've always run full thyroid panel with antibodies. And on the autoimmune topic alone, I remember we used to see antibodies sometimes. We always checked, but we didn't always see them. Now, it's rare to not see antibodies show up in blood work. And I think that's very telling about the world and the environment that we're living in and how it is increasingly overwhelming our immune systems, creating so much inflammation. And, it's not a hopeless thing we can't reverse, thank goodness. But I'm just amazed at how often we see that and how a lot of people are hearing more about this. So they come in the door with questions. Do you think it's my thyroid? But we still have the people who have no clue, and we get to run that blood work and say, guess what? We have some answers for you. We have some answers why you might be tired or losing your hair or just feeling on fire all the time.
And I think it's one time when you're like, oh, I have bad news for you, that people actually feel relieved because they're like,
real.
You mean I'm not crazy?
Yes.
There is actually something distinguishable. So yeah. It's a big deal. And it's interesting too, and I'm not going to blame COVID for everything under the sun. I don't think it helped anything.
That's no way.
I've seen more Graves' disease, which is autoimmune hyperthyroidism.
What used to be so rare.
It was really, really rare, and it doesn't seem so rare anymore. But you know what? Let's kind of define like the four. I'm going to kind of go for. We're going to keep it real simple. 4 main diagnoses people will get. Hypothyroidism, which means your thyroid is underactive. Hyperthyroidism, which means your thyroid is too busy or too active. Then there's hypothyroid with autoimmune. And that means your immune system has now determined this thyroid gland shouldn't really be there. So you're making antibodies to it. Then there's hyperthyroid with autoimmune integration. So You can have just thyroid dysfunction, or you can have it also with autoimmune involvement. And those are different. They're very different. So I think it's important to know. And I think that, I feel like for a long time, maybe it was in the 90s when women were like, I can't lose weight. And they would go, it's my thyroid. Let me get thyroid medication and then I'll lose weight. And that's one of the big things, right? Is weight. It's not always your thyroid,
But
but
often, it often is because almost every cell in the body has to have thyroid. Well, like the free T3, but it has to have thyroid hormone to function.
mhm,
That it dictates how our bowels are going to move, digestion, energy. It even has an impact on blood sugar and
cardiovascular
insulin.
function. Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, it's not surprising that when people started realizing, hey, we might have a thyroid problem, that a lot of people's lives were changed. And even still, doesn't it amaze you, Sharon, that we're in the year 2026 and there is still so much mismanagement
Yeah.
over thyroid and thyroid medications?
Yeah. You know what? And that's really good. I think let's hang out here a second, right? With mismanagement. So
Hmm.
we're gonna really light it up here. Um, let's understand first of all, because I do want to talk about what are the symptoms of hypothyroid and hyperthyroid, and why are so many times those symptoms ignored in traditional medicine? And spoiler alert, it's because the clinical ranges for what's considered normal thyroid function are completely insane. And they're usually based on the population or demographics of the people coming to the lab to have the tests run. So let's think for a minute, who goes to the lab for blood work? People feeling in their prime? Probably not.
Sick people.
Yeah. Yeah. But so let's go through. If you are hypothyroid, how do you feel?
Probably going to feel pretty tired. You might have hair loss
Mhm.
and brain fog, although that goes with just about everything. Um, you might just feel really low, really low.
Really low and slow. I always say,
Mhm.
think of a bump on a log. It's how you feel when you're hypothyroid. It's a lack of motivation. It's weight loss resistance. Everything is like dry and slow. Like people are
Like
constipated,
in slow
right?
motion. You're in slow motion.
Yeah, you are. You're in slow motion. The brain fog, like you say, that's a real
Mhm.
thing. But one of the physical tells is the outer third of your eyebrows. So everybody get a mirror
So let's all
and
check them.
look. Yeah. What do the outer third of your eyebrows look like? Because if they have disappeared, there's a chance you could have some hypothyroid going on. And it's just one of those things that some people don't know. And your doctor may not think so. Look, now I do. Like I'm looking at earlobes and eyebrows and noses and teeth and tongues. And I know you do too. And it's just something your body tells a lot about your health and what your vulnerabilities are. So it's really nice to know that. So those of you out there, gentlemen and ladies, look at your eyebrows. What do they look like? And oh, here's your piece of trivia, useless not totally useless trivia for the
No such
day.
thing. There's no such
No
thing as
such
useless.
thing. But regarding eyebrows, so I learned this in, I don't know, a Chinese medicine class, but when your eyebrows like thicken at the end of them, the outer third, when those are like really out of control, then that's usually liver disease or liver dysfunction, usually related to alcohol. And it's kind of interesting when you look at pictures of celebrities that are alcoholics, mainly men, because women are smart enough to go wax. You can tell like who has addiction issues or maybe or liver issues. So just a little side note. Um, but thyroid, yeah, hypothyroid, you're a bump on a log. You don't have motivation. You can't remember. Your skin is dry. You're constipated. Nothing moves. So that's a big one. But on the
Mhm.
flip side of that, we have hyperthyroid.
which is
problems.
basically the opposite. Think Energizer Bunny, fast heartbeat, you're sweating a lot, potentially, anxiety, weight loss, which a
Yeah.
lot of people think sounds amazing, but no, there's a dangerous place you can get with weight loss. It's not healthy to lose weight that rapidly and not be able to stop it. And then usually you're just burning up all the time because your metabolic rate is so high.
And it's not safe. It's not actually something that's good because your
Mhm.
blood pressure generally goes up with your heart rate, and people can have strokes or heart attacks from this. So it is a health emergency when we get people with hyperthyroid who are exhibiting these symptoms, because the last thing you want is to stroke out. No, being skinny is not worth that, right?
No, and with hypothyroid, we've got time because it's slow
Yeah.
motion once again. With
Mhm.
hyper, this is in like 10x speed. So we can't just sit and watch on this one.
I'll never forget the time, and this was one of those, like, healthcare teaching moment or learning moments because, I'm gonna talk about the dark side of healthcare. Like, you're taught in nursing school to
Mhm.
stereotype people. And it's like, "Wait a
Mhm.
minute, that's not right, because we're not supposed to stereotype anybody." But they're like, "No,
They
you really
just
kind of
for a
should."
reason.
Well, I had this lovely, African American young man come to me. I don't know how he found me, um, but he had been basically discharged from the hospital, and they wouldn't help him because they found him to be argumentative, and they were convinced he was high on drugs, like meth or speed or something. I don't not up on my drug names, but an upper. And so I said, "Well, let's run some labs and let's just see." Because he was like, "There is something wrong with me, and they don't believe me." I was like,
Because
"I
he felt
believe you.
crazy. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
let's look." He was so hyperthyroid, and also one of the symptoms of hyperthyroid is called exophthalmos, and it's where your eyeballs kind of bulge out, and it can be so severe that people don't close their eyelids all the way. And so that can cause a problem with your corneas. They can dry out. So your eyeballs aren't supposed to bulge. So think about people you know. Is there anybody with bulging eyeballs? Because maybe they need their thyroid checked. But this poor kid, he actually came back with Graves' disease. Like, he had autoimmune hyperthyroid, and he was kind of in a crisis situation. So I had to send him on, of course, to an endocrinologist, but it was a good lesson. It's like you can't just assume based on appearances, whether it's weight, age, gender, race, it doesn't matter. Something could be going on with the thyroid. And if somebody tells you, "I don't feel right," you should listen. It's kind of like that truism where people say, um, when people tell you who they are, you should believe them. And it's true in health, because I don't think that, unfortunately, hyperthyroid can look like drug addiction,
Mhm.
but somebody's not going to try to cover up so much that they spend their own pocket money to go to a functional medicine
Right,
doctor and go,
right.
"Help me, something's wrong," and nobody believes me.
Well, and that's to the point. We hear this all the time. My labs are normal, but I don't feel normal. Because sometimes you have to listen to the person beyond what their labs are saying. Because as you mentioned earlier, I'm glad you mentioned it because it applies to every health condition. When you're looking at
Yeah.
a lab number, you are looking at a high and a low average
Mhm.
of sick people. And so if someone says, I feel off and the labs are normal, well, let's look a little deeper. Let's address the symptoms because what if you are someone who sits on that high end to feel normal or the low end to feel normal? When it comes to
Mm.
TSH, free T3, and free T4, those are big ones that you have to kind of gauge based on what the client is telling you.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And there's a reason, not just thyroid hormones, but your cortisol, your sex hormones, there's a range that's appropriate because we're not all the same. We're
No.
not cookie cutters. And so what feels high to me may feel normal to Elena.
And that
Or
is true. We know this. We've established any of our listeners, any of our clients, any of our friends. Sharon and I are the opposite ends of every spectrum.
We're
which is
soul sisters, but
yeah,
that's where it ends.
which is why we complement each other so much. But it's fun to live that and see, okay, well, we create the average. You're welcome, folks.
Yeah, one of us is always at the opposite end of the other. It's kind of funny. Um, but yeah, so I think that's a really good point. And you know what? Let's kind of go into, because really you're right. Like, thyroid is one of those numbers, and most numbers, I think the only ones that are not determined by population or demographics are D3, your hemoglobin A1C. These are like standardized. And then I think like your high sensitivity C-reactive protein. There's very few though that are considered like they're standardized. This is acceptable and this is disease. So, but still, even in functional medicine, we're going to look at your A1C very differently than your PCP. So
So why don't we go through though what the optimal quote unquote ranges would be
the
for
ever changing,
TSH, right? The ever
optimal
changing,
ranges.
but TSH, free T3, free T4, because we look at these on everybody. Let's talk about what we are looking for the optimal,
That's good. And there is some nuance to this. And these numbers, what gets taught in classes and in, weekend seminars and stuff, that does change with the time. But overall, I'm going to give you kind of what we look at. And if you are taking thyroid medication, you're going to have different acceptable TSH numbers as opposed to somebody who does not take thyroid medication. If you're taking thyroid medication, I would kind of expect your TSH to fall somewhere between 0.5 and 1. If you're not taking thyroid medication, I would expect your TSH to fall somewhere between 1 and 2.5. Now, that's not even made in your thyroid, folks. So we're going to kind of combine here and talk about thyroid pathways. So what happens with your thyroid doesn't start and end in your thyroid. It actually we'll say it starts in the hypothalamus.
A little higher up.
Yeah, a little higher up, like the brain. And your hypothalamus is more of your regulation center in your brain. It's not just about stimulating or just about turning down. It's about both regulating. So your hypothalamus creates something called TRH, and it's seldom tested. I don't know that I've really ever tested it, but that's the hypothalamus telling the pituitary, which is one level down, hey, you need to shut it off or turn it up. Now, your pituitary gland, what is it being told to shut down or turn up? Well, your pituitary gland is your stimulation gland. And basically what it does is it spits out different stimulating hormones to various glands in your body to tell it, hey, we need more. Or if it's not needing it, it'll shut down the stimulating hormone. Yeah, I always tell people, think about your pituitary gland or your TSH, which is thyroxine stimulating hormone, thyroxine being thyroid hormone. So if TSH stimulating hormone is coming from the brain, the pituitary gland, to the thyroid to tell it, hey, make some hormone, volume matters. So think about TSH as the volume control on your radio. If it's turned way up and you got a big number, that's your pituitary yelling at your thyroid. Do something, make more hormone. If it's turned way down, that's your pituitary either being shut off or saying, we don't really need you to do much right now. You go take a coffee break. Then there's the thyroid hormone that's actually made from the thyroid. So you've got T4 and T3, and we have total and free numbers. We're going to really just concentrate on free right now because that's ultimately, think of free is what's available.
Available.
Single.
Out there floating
Marry
around. We're ready to be
marry
taken
it
up.
up. Yeah. So you've got T4, which is not even a bioavailable form. And I always say this is the beautiful, intelligent design of our body. T4 has four molecules of iodine on it, right? So you've got four iodines, and to make it active, to unlock it so that it can actually be used, you got to take one off. Well, guess what that hormone is called? Use your higher math. It's called T3. T3 is the active form of thyroid hormone. Now, about 90% of what your thyroid produces is actually T4. And the rest of it, about 10, a little less than 10%, is T3. And again, that's safety, because what happens when you get too much thyroid hormone? You could stroke out. You could have a heart attack, right? It's dangerous. So your body has to do that conversion. Your body has to remove one of those iodines to make T4 into T3.
And to make it active and available. And isn't it actually like 3 to 4 times stronger than T4?
It's much stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And almost every cell in your body, like Elena said, it's actually in the nucleus, has a keyhole or a receptor site for T3. So you need enough T3 to go all the way around. But so let's talk about free T4. So functionally, I want to see free T4 numbers between 1 and 1.8. Some people are going to feel great at 1, and some people won't feel good till they get to 1.5. And then it depends on how good they convert. Your
That's a big one.
T3 is one of those things, I think normal, what's considered clinically normal, isn't the bottom like 2.2 now? I feel like it's
pretty
real
low.
low. But most people actually don't feel like they have their vim and vigor till they're about 3.5. So 3.5 to 4.5 is what I consider kind of ideal for free T3. And what do you find? Like if somebody comes in and their free T3 is under 3, what do you find? Then
Well,
what are their complaints?
a lot of the time it is fatigue and inflammation. And I mean, just it's the low and slow,
Mm-hmm.
more like hypothyroid. But you know, Sharon, how often we see labs, we're looking once again at a full panel. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, where's their D3? Where's the iron? And there's all these other factors that come into play. So I shouldn't say rarely, but I often have to make recommendations upstream of even TSH or free T3. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but you find people are low and they want something for their thyroid. And it's like, we can't do that yet. We have to check some of the nutritional factors to help your body have the tools to make this, because they're having the same complaints that you would expect of any even clinical hypothyroid function
For
when their
sure.
levels are towards that too.
Yeah. And so we've talked about T4, which isn't bioavailable. Like your body's got to do something with it, but it's the raw material. And if you don't have enough raw material, what are the odds of you having enough finished product?
Slim.
Right, right. If I told you, hey, Elena, go make me a cake, you need 4 cups of flour. And you're like, I only have 2.
And you
Is
say,
that going
go
to
do it
be,
anyways. I'm like, well, it's going to be a crappy cake.
or somebody's not getting a piece. So it's a problem. So having enough to go around. But this is where here's another point, right? Because how many times normally, like on your annual physical or what a PCP is going to order, you're going to get TSH. If you're lucky, you'll get T4, free T4. But how many times do people come in, Elena? How many times have you seen people come
Oh
in
my
with free
gosh.
T3? None.
Rarely. Or
Like,
how about the other day, I had someone with TSH and free T4 and they'd been diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And I'm sitting there thinking, I mean, I can't diagnose. I'm a health coach, but I sure as heck can recognize a pattern when I see it, and I don't see any numbers to show me a pattern. Like, I
mhm.
mean, we are really jumping ahead here. Now, I don't think they were wrong, because then we did our full blood work and I saw that, but I'm like, where did you even come up with this?
Yeah. I think, it's important to have the right knowledge because the way that we would deal with hypothyroid isn't exactly the same way we're going to deal with autoimmune hypothyroid.
Right. Some of those solutions for hypothyroid can exacerbate Hashimoto's or autoimmune
Oh,
thyroid.
so true. So true. Good point. Yeah, I think that's right. But here's another place where we diverge from normal medical clinics because we're going to check TSH. We check total and free T4 and total and free T3. But then we're also going to check for antibodies to your thyroid and we're going to check for something called reverse T3.
Oh, yes. Let's talk about that because nobody gets that unless that is especially asked for. And we will always ask for it for our clients.
But why?
That is a very good indicator for what what is your liver doing? What is the leftover? What is that loop in your thyroid hormone doing? And what does your body do with it? And it
Yeah.
tells us, like what do we need to do to support the liver? Because that is so far upstream of everything or downstream, really depends on how you look at it. But liver is life, as I learned in one of my courses, and he wasn't wrong. The liver is important.
And the liver is mainly where the conversion from T4 to T3 happens. It does happen in a lot of peripheral tissue, but liver plays a big, big role. And I always tell people think about reverse T3 as what gets put in timeout, whether
Yeah.
it's appropriate or not.
Well,
You're
right. And
because
that's
it's
where you decide, do you get used in this pathway, that pathway, or are we going to deactivate you?
yeah. And a lot of times those same people will be low on the T3 scale. And it's not
Yes.
that they don't have T3, it's that their tissues don't know what to do with it or don't want to do anything with it. And so for me as a provider, the last thing I want to do, I want to see reverse T3 levels under 15. So
And
the
we
last
often
thing I
see it.
want to
We often
yeah.
see it a lot higher than that.
So when I see somebody with reverse T3 of 30, the last thing I want to do is up their thyroid medication, right?
Mhm.
But doctors don't wanna order reverse T3. It does cost a little more.
No, it is
It's
an expensive one, but I mean, I always tell clients it's worth knowing. If we're trying to help your whole body health, we're trying to help your hormones, your gut health, your
mhm,
energy, your weight, why would we skip a very important number?
yeah, that's so true.
But, that also it brings up a good point about the amount of people who are on medication and don't feel better. Because
Yeah,
how often do you see, Sharon? I don't get to mess with people's medications, but once again, I can see patterns. I can
mhm,
acknowledge symptoms. I can see deficiencies. And so often people are on a medication, like they have T4. Their body can't convert it. It cannot convert it to T3. So you're really on a pointless medication that's making you feel worse, or maybe you felt better for a second
or it's
and then you
overwhelming your liver.
right? And then you plateau, you feel worse. A
Mhm,
lot of people feel worse. If you can't get that thyroid medication fine-tuned, it's not going to be
mhm.
helpful. And oftentimes, not always, but often it's a conversion issue.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And we're gonna go into the cofactors and nutrients that are needed for points of, like, conversion and hormone formation and all of that, and we'll go into that in just a little bit for sure, but I think that it's helpful to know, for those of you who have the advantage of having maybe you do Function Health or one of these other or maybe your doctor's nice enough to order a full panel.
It
Um,
happens.
look and see, are you in those optimal ranges? Because I will see people in a clinically normal range, but they have all the symptoms, usually of hypothyroid. Um, and it's hard, you have to have a practitioner who can understand what nutrition is likely deficient. Are all of those bases being covered? And this person is what we call euthyroid, means thyroid is actually in the normal range, but they are still hypothyroid because those people sometimes do benefit from a little hormone replacement. And this is where I think, the lower doses and addressing toxicity issues and, genetics and figuring out what is your body not doing right. What if the reason you're so tired isn't just because you're busy? If you're dealing with low energy, brain fog, inflammation, or hormone changes, it might be time to try something different at K6 Wellness Center. At K6, we offer advanced wellness therapies like nutritional IV treatments, hormone optimization, regenerative medicine, plus extensive testing and health screenings you just won't find in traditional medical clinics. That means deeper insight into what's going on in your body and a plan designed just for you. So if you're ready to stop pushing through, just trying to survive the day and start living your very best life feeling healthy and strong, visit us at k6wellness.com to set up a free discovery call or call 214-352-7546. No matter where you are in the world, K6 Wellness Center can help you on your journey to great health.
Exactly, because thyroid isn't just getting on the right supplement, be it, a glandular or herbs or minerals or amino acids. It's not just a one simple fix. You have to ask in regards to thyroid health, the same thing you have to ask if someone comes in with cancer or RA or fibromyalgia, any of it. It's like, what is happening in your environment? What is your epigenetic story here? And epigenetics are your experiences and exposures that influence and determine how your DNA expresses. So we have to look at all those factors because I think much like I said earlier, how we're seeing this increase in inflammation, not just in thyroid antibodies, but in homocysteine and CRP, so many other markers, our toxicity is unchecked. Now, it's not if you work with us, because we take toxicity pretty seriously, but there is so much of that is being ignored or people just don't know enough. And for any of our listeners, I'm here to tell you that it doesn't matter if you've got thyroid problems or any other autoimmune or weight or cardiovascular. Toxins play a huge part. Genetics do as well because that determines how you handle those things in your environment. But we can't isolate the thyroid and say it's just the thyroid because so often it can be a gut problem, a leaky gut problem because of exposures that weaken the thyroid, or it's a poor lymph problem and your body's not clearing out the trash that can lead to a thyroid problem. So it's finding that balance of, is it the chicken or the egg, or sometimes it's kind of both.
Well, and I think, the whole toxin issue is really interesting to me because sometimes what do you do if your thyroid medication is the toxin?
Right. Oh my
And
goodness.
this is something that I feel like has definitely been dealt with more constructively in the last 10 years for sure. But because I've been around so long, I remember further back. But I'm not going to say a brand name, but levothyroxine. There are so levothyroxine is the pharmaceutical synthetic T4. So remember, T4 is not bioavailable. Your body has to convert that by pulling off an iodine. Now, there are synthetic forms of levothyroxine. That's what most people are going to be taking as a thyroid medication because that's standard of care. That's your first line treatment is if you are low in T4, then we prescribe T4, levothyroxine. But some of the main manufacturers have ingredients like cornstarch, coloring. For a long time, there was gluten in it, and confectioner's sugar and gums that a lot of people are sensitive to, especially people with autoimmune issues. And talc, which is a known carcinogen. Why are we putting talc?
Unbelievable.
And thyroid hormone that people are swallowing? I feel like there are better binders. It must have been a binder, right? I don't know. But that is disturbing. And so it's interesting because I can think back earlier in my career where people were, they were prescribed, versions of T4. And they're like, I feel worse. I feel terrible. I broke out in a rash. I have this, I have that. And nobody knew why. And I'll never forget, it was Dr. Ellen Cutler who taught me. She was like, there's gluten in that. And because I'd never seen the pills, or whatever. But yeah, why are we putting colors in it? Why are we dyeing these things? I feel like there's better ways to do it.
And that's
And
not
putting
just
gluten in it.
thyroid, right? I mean, that's not just thyroid
No,
meds. That is medications across the board. And that is where
yeah.
compounding pharmacies really shine.
Yeah, because they're going to take a raw ingredient and they're going to put it together in a way that doesn't have ingredients you don't want in it.
Mhm.
And you do pay more for it, but a lot of times it's really worth it.
Well, you're going to pay one way or the other.
And the
right?
thing is, like with what your thyroid produces, you're about a 90-10 split, T4 to T3. But most prescriptions that are glandular, like I think most of them are porcine or from pig thyroid, they're going to be more of an 80-20 split, T4 to T3. So you may be getting not enough T4, too much T3. There
And then
can
it's
be
relying on an already broken system to say,
Yeah.
we assume, body, that you can take this
And
and
do
you're going to
something.
convert it appropriately. You're not going to convert too much. You're not going to convert too little. You're going to do your job.
Mhm.
Well, not always.
Maybe not.
Right. It's an 80-20.
Yeah, for sure. One thing we didn't touch on with regard to labs are the antibody counts.
Yes, I'm glad you
How
said that.
many antibodies are normal?
Well,
Elena?
according to labs, it could be
Some.
15, 20, 30. Yeah, some. Some are apparently appropriate. But in the optimal holistic functional world, it should be none. Now, most labs won't give you a 0. You'll get a less than 1. That's as close as you get, and that is the sweet spot.
Because they don't measure it. Well, all that means, just so you know, whether you're measuring testosterone or BUN or creatinine or whatever it is, if it says less than a number, it means their measurement device doesn't measure lower than that number.
I'm glad you clarified that because,
Yeah.
right. You could have none, but it's going to say less than 1.
Mhm.
And yet, clinically, you're fine if you have 30, 40.
And
I
how
think
many times do we see 30 go to 500 in a year?
so often, so much of the time.
Yeah.
And the thing is, even when it's in that clinical range, for me, that's a flag. If I see any antibodies on a client, it's like, all right, well, your body is clearly trying to tell us something because here's the thing about antibodies. It's a signal.
Mm-hmm.
It is a warning sign. Your body is telling you, hey, we're not happy. Something is going on. And you know what? The thyroid's pretty important. It's the metabolic center. We're going to start flagging that for future destruction. So here's flags, here's warnings. And what do we want to do as a practitioner? What do we want to do as the client and individual? Do we want to just wait, watch, and see?
Isn't that one of the saddest things is when people go, well, they just told me we're going to watch for a while.
I don't care what we're talking about. Even if it's, thyroid or anything, to wait, watch, and see, you're letting a fire brew. Would you ever in your house say, oh, a fire started in the back room. We're just going to see what it does.
We're going to let those coals go.
Right. I mean, might be fun.
Is it going to spontaneously resolve?
What are you going to have to do? Yeah. What are you going to have to do to repair that damage after that happened? Your thyroid is no different. So anything that is a 1, a 2, a 3, a 5, 10, 15, 20 for thyroid antibodies, and that's both antibodies. You have the thyroid peroxidase antibodies and the thyroid globulin antibodies. We don't want to see any of those. And when we see it, we're going to take it seriously. I tell clients all the time. I think I say it daily. Hey, I can't diagnose. Here's the pattern I see. Here's what we can do. Thank goodness there are lifestyle adjustments we can make and nutritional adjustments we can make. And that's what I can do, right? When they need those medications adjusted, that's when they see you, Sharon, or anyone with a medical license. But there's a lot you can do before you get to that point.
We've we've had people come in and go, I don't want to take thyroid medication anymore. And we both go, I don't know. You may be stuck because it's a hormone. And once you start taking it, sometimes the gland that produces it kind of turns down a
Right
long
now,
way.
it's possible. And I think we
But
get
we
asked that all
do.
the time. It
Yeah.
happens.
And we've seen people get off their thyroid hormone replacement because they fixed their nutrition.
Right. You don't just do that on a whim. You don't just do that because you decide, I want to stop taking my medication. The people who can get off their medications have removed toxins. They've probably spent a couple years removing toxins.
It is not a 6-week detox.
No way. But
I wish.
Oh, don't we all? But they've also fine-tuned their nutrition. They've figured out their inflammatory triggers. They've removed those. They've probably done some emotional work to help balance the stress in life, because stress is a killer. It's possible. You can get off a thyroid medication, just like we've seen stage 4 cancer reverse. You can. The body made this disaster. It can clean it up. But how much are you willing to put in? Time, money, energy, and a lot of it's energy.
For sure.
What are you willing to put into that to get that result? Because there is no way you're going to come have an appointment with either of us and 6 weeks later be off your medication.
Yeah.
And there are no promises.
Yeah, I agree. And I will say, I think this is a good time to let's touch on nutritional cofactors that are necessary, because I think if people could understand this, because we'll look at your blood work and we're going to pull things out of it or extrapolate some things that maybe your PCP is not going to. And that's fine. I mean, this is our specialty. This is what we
all
do.
have our role to play.
Yeah. So, I think that it's really valuable to know, okay, well, maybe this number is a little bit in the toilet, but you know what? If we fix this nutritional deficiency, that number could fix itself. TSH is one of those, because we'll get people, you can have primary or secondary hypothyroidism, you can have hyperthyroidism, and then you can tag in autoimmune on top of that. But with your TSH, the nutrients, micronutrients that are necessary to feed your hypothalamus and your pituitary gland in order to produce healthy amounts of that thyroxine stimulating hormone are magnesium. And most Americans are magnesium deficient.
And let's say why? Because our soil is deficient in magnesium.
So deficient.
Organic when you can, magnesium supplements the rest of the time.
Absolutely. And I would like to point out that chocolate is a good magnesium source. Probably not the best. B12. B12 is really important for TSH production, for everything to do with energy production in every cell. Zinc is probably one of the most important ones. And this is something I know and it's not something I like to tell people, oh, you need a zinc supplement. I mean, maybe you do, but why don't you try to get more zinc in your diet? Because food can be medicine, folks.
And it should be, especially for thyroid. Like really, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to get enough from your food. Yes, our soil's depleted, the food's depleted.
Soil
but if
sucks.
Right. But if you are eating a balanced diet, you're going to get most of the nutrients you need. The problem is we aren't eating a balanced diet. I mean, we try to. I think, Sharon, you and I, we do a pretty good job, because we're going to practice what we preach, folks. We are going to. But so often people get stuck in a rut of either eating nothing good for them, or even people who eat healthy eat the same healthy food all the time. They aren't eating the rainbow that God designed. They aren't eating all the meat. Or, sometimes beef gets a bad rap. And I'm here to tell you, there's very few people. Right. Very few people who don't need it. And K6 beef is exceptional beef. I wasn't paid to say that. I've tried it. It's that good.
Chris Cron does a good job. So we do. We raise our own beef and this, but I think here, like your family does some beef production and meat production.
Yeah.
And we do. So on a personal basis, for those of you who don't know, I mean, my family does regenerative ranching and farming. And so I love I love sitting down to a meal, and my daughter, who lives at the ranch full time, will say, okay, everything on your plate came from our garden, our animals, or it was raised 5 miles down the road. I didn't think that would ever affect me quite so strongly, but it's such a big deal. And it really does improve your health. But you're going to get more nutrition because, like zinc, B12, that's a red meat. Those are red meat micronutrients. Protein is important for TSH.
Don't hate on beef.
Don't hate on beef. My husband always says, my beef ate vegetables. The cow I'm eating
So
was a
you don't have to?
vegetarian.
Okay, that's not true. You still have to eat your vegetables,
not
but you
true.
do want your beef to have eaten vegetables.
Yeah. But you can get so many trace minerals, and it really is the organ meats that are so valuable. And that's why I think, these desiccated organ lines of supplements have become so popular because people recognize, oh, I can eat. And when I say desiccated, I mean freeze dried. So they'll take liver, freeze dry it, pulverize it, and put it in a capsule. Well, people don't unless you grow up eating liver, it's an acquired taste. Now, I love liver, but I ate it growing up. It doesn't bother me. And now that we raise our own, but we're always real careful about where we bought it because what does the liver do? The liver's your filter. So you don't want to be
a dirty filter.
No, you don't want to eat a dirty air filter. So what we do with our ground beef is we do mix in heart, kidney, and liver. I think heart, kidney, and liver. Maybe it's just heart and liver. I can't remember. Not my department, but it's not so much that you taste liver, but it's funny because everyone who gets our beef goes, that is the best tasting beef. And I think it's just a little bit richer. If you've ever had heart tastes like roast beef. It's just very beefy.
And some individuals are sensitive. I think we've had a few. They come back and say, I tasted a difference. And, my first question is, have you had really good quality beef in the
Are you
first place?
eating Walmart beef? Or are you?
And secondly, if you do think you taste it, then just add more seasoning. That's what salt, spices, and herbs are for. Praise the Lord.
Yeah, I love our beef. But the beef does provide so many B vitamins, the protein that you need. The organs are great too, because also to produce TSH, you need selenium, you need iodine, you need iron, and you need vitamin A. That's a fat soluble vitamin. But those are really important just to get the process started.
And once again, going back to food, I mean, you can get all of this from food. Brazil nuts, don't they have like 90, was it micrograms, milligrams of selenium per nut?
I think you can eat 2 or 3 Brazil nuts a day and get all the selenium required for thyroid hormone conversion.
Yeah.
Because guess what, folks? Do you know what you need to convert T4 to T3 to take that iodine off?
Selenium.
Selenium. You do need some zinc and iron also.
I don't want to dismiss those by any means. But if you're eating red meat, if you're eating dark leafy greens, you're going to get most of that. And for the iodine, I know that we try to sway people away from table salt that's enriched in iodine because that's crappy chemicals of sodium that your body does not need. And while your body does need some iodine, it doesn't need near as much as we are led to believe. Very little goes a long ways. And that's where, hey, we should be eating seaweed anyways, because seaweed and sea vegetables have so many minerals and nutrients, and you will get enough iodine there. You rarely need to supplement. Now, we find some people do, but I mean, I'm so careful on recommending iodine because I don't want to add fuel to a fire. If there's an imbalance in the way your thyroid can manage hormones and help the cells use them, and then you have antibodies. We don't want to fire that up. We don't want too much information going on there to tell your body, we can't convert that, but now we have an excess of iodine. Let's just start a fire.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. I think too, hormones. Now we get people who come to us for fertility. That's not our specialty here, but you know what? we're really good at it.
We can still help.
We're really good. We have a lot of babies in our practice to show for it. But even if you go to a fertility clinic, if you're dealing with, man, I can't get pregnant or whatever, there are a lot of emotional things, definitely regulating hormones. But one of the first things that your doctor is going to test you for is thyroid function and vitamin D, because those are upstream or necessary for healthy sex hormone production. If your thyroid doesn't work, it's going to be real hard to get pregnant. And so sometimes just because your range is normal, quote unquote, it's not enough. It needs to be optimized. I saw this with my own daughter, just realizing like you're like okay, but you're really not okay. And just getting her thyroid optimized it was night and day.
And she didn't even require very much, right? Wasn't
No.
she on such a low dose?
We got permission from her midwife because I didn't want to overstep. But she's like, "Oh, that's a granny dose." I was like, "Yeah."
Some people need a granny dose.
Just needed a nudge. Just needed a nudge, but night and day. So amazing. Yeah. So, and I think that's important too, to understand women, no matter what stage of life you're at, because it could be, oh, I want a family and I can't get pregnant, or maybe it's perimenopause, menopause. Maybe you are a nightmare for the rest of the world. This can be very mood disrupting. It can really affect your ability to regulate your body temperature, skin changes, hair changes. And sometimes it's not enough to be clinically within normal limits. Sometimes this is where you need to be optimized. And before we just say, oh yeah, you're subclinical and you need a prescription. No, we need to look at nutrition.
Always. You always have to look at nutrition, because I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter if you are a 14-year-old who just got her cycle or a postmenopausal woman who doesn't have to worry about that anymore. The nutrition you put in your body is going to determine how your hormones express. It's that simple. And I mean, it's that simple, but then sometimes you do have to help the body because we're living in the world that we're living in. And when you don't have as much estrogen, it does affect how the thyroid hormones travel in your bloodstream. Like how much is accessible? What can your body use? And where is it going?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, so I think this is, all of these things that we're talking about, I think it's important to really just understand that, okay, I think that maybe I could have a thyroid problem, but I'm not sure because I eat a lot of gluten, or I eat a lot of this and you love that. And all the people say, because you hear things on social media, and I don't even have social media. I love it.
You still hear.
People go, oh, I love that post that you did. And I was like, what post?
Thanks for watching. Thanks for seeing.
It's my lovely little social media queen doing that. But really, it's understanding that, there's a lot involved here. We don't want to resort to medication. We want you to use food as medicine. We're going to help guide you on that path. But I think that no matter your season of life, understanding having somebody on your team who understands, and this isn't just for women, this goes for men too.
Because it happens to men all the time.
It does. Autoimmune or thyroid issues are part and parcel, I think, for our population. But I think a lot of it comes from, like we said earlier, toxins, nutrient deficiencies due to eating a standard American diet, which is, I think that it's not as micronutrient poor as much as it is seed oil rich.
And choice poor.
Yeah, choice poor. So if you've been raised on processed food, if you were raised driving through the drive-up window, if you were raised eating out 3 to 4 times a week minimum, you might not have a palate that appreciates home-cooked food or whole food. But I would encourage you to give it a month because it takes 28 days for your taste buds to turn over.
As well as
So,
to develop a habit.
oh yeah, at
Mhm.
least that. And this is something that is a non-negotiable. There's no way to eat out in restaurants all the time and be healthy unless you are one of those lucky schmucks who can not a schmuck, but can afford to eat out at really nice restaurants 3 times a day. Good
But
for
even
you.
but even then, there's still seed oils.
And seed oils, I think, used to, I will say, I'm going to own this. Okay. Like 15 years ago, if you came into my practice and you had thyroid antibodies, I'm going to be like, you should probably get off gluten and casein, at least for a little while. And let's see if these numbers go down. Well, now we know it may not be gluten and casein
It's
as
not
much as,
enough.
yeah, it's so much the seed oils.
Mhm.
Seed oils and
Mhm.
food chemicals, plasticizers, um, food colors or food dyes, excuse me. All of these things, they all tax our system in one way or another. And what's scary, if you do have antibodies, even if you're in the clinically normal range, remember, no antibodies are
Mhm.
normal. They may be common, and common does not equal normal, but the traditional medical wisdom is going to say, well, when you get one autoimmune disease, you're going to start collecting more. You get more autoimmune diagnoses. And I would say you just rebuke that. I
Well,
rebuke
I rebuke it, but it is true if you do
if
not
you don't
acknowledge.
change. Yeah.
Right, if you don't acknowledge the factors that play into that, which are
Agreed.
toxins, 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 because, hey, stress is a toxin.
Yeah. Stress is a
There's
toxin. You've got
so many.
endotoxins, you've got other toxins, stress, relationships, stress during meal times. And this is something I think, if we can be as a society more mindful of the food that we're eating, that means put your phone down.
Right,
Don't
not
look
just
at
what
your
you're eating,
phone
how you're eating it.
and don't watch TV while you're eating.
Mhm.
Either eat and have some conversation or eat in peace and quiet and acknowledge the taste, the texture, and the quality of your food.
Give your nervous system a break. We don't do that. In our world and society, we do not. So our bodies stay in this constant on
Yeah.
function versus getting some rest and repair and allowing the nervous system to reset. When you're eating with so many distractions all the time,
Yeah.
you think your digestion is going to go perfect? It probably isn't.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, and it's going to change through the seasons of your life. What happened,
Absolutely.
what was great in your 20s and 30s, you may get to 45 and go, what happened? The wheels fell off the bus. But if your thyroid is online, if you're in tune with what your body's messages are to yourself,
And you're feeding it nutrition that it
men,
needs.
Men, if you're paying attention to muscle formation, to hair loss and this type of hair loss, to libido, to erectile function or dysfunction, to gastrointestinal health, to attention, to mental acuity, women, to weight, to skin, to hair, to libido,
Energy.
energy, you can start to discern, oh, maybe I need to do this or that, or maybe I need to go K6 Wellness Center, get my thyroid tested. Um, there's so much that you can correct without medication. That does not mean medication is unnecessary. Sometimes it is. But if you really want to be proactive and holistic, you need to be open to changing diet and habits and attitudes and
Absolutely.
understand that, you know what? This could be a multi-layered problem.
Because
And
it's never one thing. There's always more to it. There is the gut factor, the environment factor. What are you feeding your body? But attitude's a big thing. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to
Mhm.
sacrifice Are you willing to sacrifice some pleasures, some cheap food, or are you willing to put the money into it, the time into it, and the energy? So
Yeah.
I really think that we've covered so many factors that have to do with thyroid health. And we'd love to work with any one of our listeners that hears this and thinks, I might need a little guidance there. We can
Mhm.
help. So, thanks again for tuning in. We hope this episode resonates with you and that you can use this information to make better decisions towards your health and your wellness. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and follow us on Rumble, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, any of those things you're on for more wellness content.
And if you'd like to book a consultation with Elena or I, visit k6wellness.com and you can learn more about what we do, or you can schedule a free discovery call. We're located in Dallas, Texas, but we work with people all over the world. Until next time, take care, be well, and as always, your health is worth fighting for.